Okay, thank you. So the regular council meeting of March 19th at 6:02, and I'll call the meeting to order. Item number 2 on the agenda is the closure of the council meeting. We'll move right into the closed portion subject to legal, and A is legal and B is personnel from section 90.1 A, B, C, D, G, I, K, M, and N. Do we have a motion to move in closed? Second. All in favor?
Second.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, you can close off the meeting. Thank you. Okay, welcome back to the regular council meeting of March 19th. It's 7:06. And with that, we'll call the meeting to order. And item number 3 is reporting out from the closed portion of the meeting. There is nothing to report out from the closed portion of the meeting at this time. We'll move to item number 4, adoption of the agenda. Any items that are added or changing?
Yeah, I'd like to add the on-table item that I previously submitted to you all.
Okay, Councillor Broughton.
We actually had that in the closed portion of the meeting and did not get to address it, so I would oppose adding the item. It was deemed to be of a sensitive nature and we did not have the opportunity to discuss it, so suggest that we not add it to the agenda.
Okay, Councillor Abbott.
I was going to speak on behalf of the CEO because he's applicant, but maybe he can confirm. The reason it was enclosed the way I understood it was to deal with the matter we did deal with enclosed. And if we hadn't dealt with that, then this shouldn't be known. Now that we've dealt with what we dealt with enclosed, it can now be known.
And not that. I would suggest for the third component of that motion. Until I finish the steps.
So you don't go forward with the third portion of the, yes.
Right.
So shall I amend my ask then to move forward to add that to the agenda minus the third portion of the recommendation that I made?
I'd be cautious about making this I would do that verbally,
I will be doing it verbally, yeah.
not physically. Because you can't.
Do we have a copy of that? I don't have a copy.
It was emailed to everyone 24 hours prior.
And there's changes to that, is there?
I think the recommendation is to hold back on the third element of the recommendation.
Okay, any other amendments, changes?
If I could, Mr. Berger would like to have introduced 2 on-table reports, sort of emergent issues that he'd like to sneak under the wire if he could.
So just one.
The orders were received on the weekend, right? The reports were received on the weekend.
And the motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where would we be adding my on-table item under council? Under 10C?
Yes.
Okay.
And C4.
10C3, I guess. We only have 10C1 and 2. Is that right?
No, we have 3.
Do we?
The item number 4.
Okay.
And then Cole's thing will then be staff, it'll be 10A.
Did we have any feedback from the fire chief on Carl's suggestions?
There have been emails going back and forth on details.
Any details on those?
Perhaps Mr. Berg can provide indication. So Mr. Berg's reports will go under section 10A3.
Oh, 3, yes. Okay. Okay, any other amendments, changes?
Not for me.
Okay, all those in favor?
Yes,
Yes,
Opposed? Carried. Okay. With that, we'll move to public participation. Is there anyone in the gallery? You step up to the podium and announce yourself.
Yes, good evening. My name is Mike Porter. I'm in Brunswick Beach. And I would like to, and why I'm here tonight is to hopefully bring into council record a recommendation for commendation to recognize the work of the beach committee that, as I understand it right now, has finalized their report and filed it with council in this moment. So, from my perspective of what I know of this, these people have had, I believe, 53 meetings over the last 14 months, which is a tremendous workload. And at least 2 a month they scheduled, and then they had ad hoc meetings. Probably the most extensive volunteer, certainly in the 10 years I've been around Lions Bay. There may have been some in older times. I think what we need to consider is recognizing this volunteer contribution as superior. We speak often of wanting volunteers. We've had difficulty at times in getting volunteers. And I'd like to just name the key members: Scott Gordon, Susan Davis, David Lee, Oliver Gansky, and Kirsty Pappas. These are the key members. There were, in the early days, a lot more people involved, people from the stable as well. And I would like to raise a proposal for consideration that a letter of commendation from council or from the village, what they be appropriate, goes out commending them for their volunteerism and recognizing the superior nature of their work in the past 14 months. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone like to put forward a motion?
Would be,
No?
could we discuss that under the in beach park component, or I certainly would support that motion. Put forward a motion that a letter commending the work of the beach park committee be crafted and sent to all the 5 listed members.
Okay,
Would we direct the CAO to do so, or would that come from the?
Mr. Blackwell, you got your hand up.
thank you. My recommendation to council as a standard of good practice, never make resolutions or motions on the fly. It's always best to hear presentations, take that away, consider it, either ask staff if it's necessary, ask staff to report back on whatever issue, but it's always good practice to not make decisions on the fly. Irrespective of whether they're fantastic or not, it's good just to hit the pause button.
Great. Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, so
All right.
prefer to step back.
Okay, anyone else in the gallery? No, online, Maureen?
David
Jay
Shaw.
Shaw.
Mr. Shore, you got your hand up. Please unmute.
Yes, I believe I'm on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'd also like to take a minute to give a sincere round of thanks to the outgoing Beach Park Committee, and I think I'm in near unanimous company for doing so. All of the volunteers on that committee were AAA grade with extensive experience, and we're so very fortunate to have them devote more of their time to our community. The Beach Park is effectively an ambassador for our village to visitors and newcomers, and has always been a haven for the summer events that matter to us the most. It's where our youngest generation learned to swim and connect with the lifelong friends, and where we all go down for a sundown and occasionally a sundowner. And it's the only serious upgrade we've had or we've attempted in the 20 years that Brigida and our family have been here. There is a legacy here. The planning has been intensive and concerted, and the outcome should be terrific. So a very hearty thanks to you all, the Beach Park Committee.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David. Okay, anyone else, Marina? No. No? Okay, with that, we'll move right on to the delegations, and as Mr. Blackwell said, Scott Christie from Balance Environmental is unable to make it. He sends his regrets. So we'll move to Merrick Shrudsky.
Hopefully you can hear me. I'm somewhat meant to exhaust myself today, working too much, but anyway, let's try. By now, we all can agree that due to an exceptionally low snowpack above Lions Bay, we will experience a serious water shortage this summer. In addition, we have undiscovered water leakage in pipes all around the village. Unfortunately, the potential elimination of all water leaks will not resolve our water predicament unless we experience continuous rains through summer and autumn. Storing large volumes of water, raw water, is not feasible in Lions Bay topography. A sustainable long-term water supply plan is necessary and should include budgetary forecasting for a range of $1 million. What alternatives do we have for the water sources? Desalination is a valuable option, however, very expensive. For our village, additional water needs, a new small desalination plant will cost between $2 and $3 million, depending on the source of equipment. That is likely 1/3 of the total cost. Construction cost will be much greater and will include intake system piping, multiple pump stations to get the water, new water up to the current gravity system elevation. The timeline, if starting tomorrow, it would take a range of 3 to 5 years to design, permit, and construct. The operation cost of desalination plants are very high compared to what we run in this village, especially. We should seriously consider the option of drilling for water. Looking at the groundwater registry, it looks like there are many wells drilled in our area. According to BC Groundwater Wells and Aquifer website, there are approximately 20 wells between Seascape Development, Porter Cove Provincial Park, Ferry Creek Development. Gambier Island alone has at least 20 wells, so it's a not unusual practice here. P2 Associates Engineering was retained in 2005 on my hydrogeological assessment to define areas within Lions Bay, which are most prospective for a potential development of groundwater sources. In conclusion to the engineering report states, groundwater recharge estimates for the creek basin surrounding Lions Bay indicate that there is a potential for a required minimum of 10 liters per second flow being produced from wells drilled into a fractured bedrock in either of Harvey or Magnesia Creek Basin. Also states it is estimated that between 3 to 4 wells will be required to sustain the minimum flow, and up to 150 meter test deep holes may be required to provide the desired yield and water quality. A general map is included in my notes, which I'll pass along. On February 28 this year, on 27, sorry, there was a meeting held with armed Belgian hydrologist Dave Pitlady, and who is a petty chief engineer, Cody Campbell, Ridgeline Drilling Principal, Lions Bay Mayor, and Village Works Manager. In conclusion, Establishing the potential location and drilling of 3 wells will take only a few weeks. The required licensing from the province will take longer, but it should not affect the water usage under emergency conditions. It has been suggested to drill 1 hole near Harvey, Alberta, and Magnesia Creek to ensure that at least partial success. Depending on location, the cost of estimates for drilling in Lions Bay would be $30,000 to $35,000 for 200 feet, 6-inch well. And if we go full length, 200 meters, drill will cost $75,000 to $80,000. The general estimate for 3 wells, 200-meter deep, drilling, capping, testing, and licensing is approximately $350 to $500, depending on the contractor. The exploration program's success probability is approximately 70% when drilling. A 72-hour pumping test is required for each hole. It may be useful to note that the unused water hole can be developed to a geo-exchange energy, i.e. the village hall heating system. From consultation with few old-time residents, here are notes about locations. Access to test drilling is major concern. Harvey Creek is possibly accessible above the debris dam, but it would need pump stations to elevate the water back to the tank and treatment elevation for the gravity feed. Magnesia Creek access is tricky. Number 3 spot will be challenged. The upper spot is about the current intake, but accessible. Alternatively, a lower level location could also need pump stations like in Harvey. Alberta Creek is highly probable. It seems to be spring-fed and a good deal of water is leaking out of the fractured rock above. So installation of small concrete weir, repumping, plumbing and current tanks and adding a chlorination system might be the most expedited and most guaranteed partial solution. Hence, the Infrastructure Committee is busy with multiple topics. I propose to form a Lions Bay Water Task. The times are crucial here. I would like to leave you with a quote. At the end of the day, good decision-making comes down to a good process, but it also relies on wisdom of terms of balanced advice. And balanced advice is what we need here. A group of people to form the committee and help us to solve the water problem because we need that. Thank you. I would like this to be published in the community section of the village update. I'll send you the electronic copy.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Schwartzman. Any questions?
Could I follow up on your comment regarding the geothermal opportunity with the village hall? The Climate Action Committee has looked at putting in heat pumps. And I'm just wondering if the hole is drilled and any idea of the cost of geothermal, because you don't need backup heat with geothermal because you have perpetual source of heat. So it's not whether
by far more expensive than typical
heat pumps.
back of the house heat pumps.
Yeah.
For certain, the opportunity is because one of the hydrologists suggested to drill actually not far from the building up the stream on the side of the creek. That if that hole fails, we could use it potentially
For geothermal.
So it's not a loss of drilling process. But this village desperately needs more water.
Yes, yeah.
Any development, even adding a few houses, becomes a big question at the moment.
Yeah.
There's still some empty lots. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, can we pass a comment?
Yes. Councilor.
Yeah, Mary, thanks for that. So you did come to the infrastructure committee in the last meeting. And I think you're aware that we advised that the infrastructure committee is currently, for the next meeting, looking at short-term solutions around leakage and something we can get done now before summer. And then in our main meeting, we were going to start looking at longer-term issues and sustainability issues. And we discussed that this item was one of the, probably the most important one to discuss in that main meeting. So I'd like to suggest that you come join us at that meeting and bring your information, and that's the place to have the discussion.
Sure. Well, research information, so very useful. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much.
Have a good night, Jim. Sorry.
Okay,
Thank you, Mayor.
we'll move to
Could I just make an
Yeah.
observation too?
Council Leiter.
That we actually already do have, a water task force of a sort. They're made up of a crack team, first grade material. They go by a rather unassuming name, and that is Public Works. These guys know more about our water than anybody. So, just kudo to them for their work on that.
Good. Okay, any other comments? No. Item number 7, approval of the minutes from March 5th. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, any comments? Comments?
None.
So just give me a second. No,
Okay, and,
yep, I'm good.
okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, I have no business arising.
Could I just make a quick note about the agenda? We've got under delegations, we had Christy Scott, and it's actually Scott Christie. It's not a big deal, but just
Yeah.
for the future, that the name is Scott Christie, yeah. I forgot to mention that during the adoption of the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 9, unfinished business, page 13, follow-up items. Going electronic, and then just sit down to page 80.
Can I add something for comment?
Yes,
So in the interest of time, what the frequent this sort of thing is that the only council is given the opportunity to pull out of this specific items
Mhm.
that they want to hear an update on, rather than go through all of them.
sure.
So
Okay,
that's an alternative, just to
okay.
speak.
We've all got the table in front of us. Any councilors have any items you'd like specifically to reference? Yes, Councilor.
So item 306 has been at the Climate Action Committee. We have discussed it. And one of the members of the committee is taking that on to pursue it further. So that leave it as ongoing, but it's with the CAC now. And one person put up his hand to do some research.
Fabulous. Any other items that,
Item 312, I was looking for an update. I think Ross knows this. This is the BC Nature thing. Do you have an update for me?
I do. Mr. Burr and I was talking about this today. I think we're at a place where Mr. Burr has exhausted his ability to figure out how to access this information. And we are not able to provide it at this point. I don't know if Mr. Burr, you'd like to.
Yeah, that's right. We really have no in-house GIS experience. We can engage such expertise. It's a bigger project, but there's nothing that I can produce out of the resources that we have. I would say that our GIS data, we have 3 separate instances, some of which seems to be duplicates in different places. I started consolidating it. I looked long and hard to the extent that I understand GIS, which is not a very big extent. I've spoken to this guy 3 times. He seems uncertain whether he's looking for LiDAR or GIS data. The LiDAR data we have licensed from Apple, and it's not available for us to disseminate further. I've told him this several times. I think it's LiDAR that he actually wants, and we can't give him mouse. So that's pretty much where it sits.
how critical is it? Because
We,
geologists, I'm sure there's quite a few of them in the village, normally have this figured out. How badly do we want this information?
let me go back to BCH. I mean, this wasn't meant to be costing us anything. And they'd said, they take care of everything. That's not the way it's turning out. We will do, if they did, we could allow them to have access to our LiDAR. They'd have to pay a fee to McLean, is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure what the license is. Okay.
All right, let me go back to them and see. I mean, it wasn't meant not to be, it was meant not to be a cost on taxpayers. And if it is, it's not the way it's working out, I'll circle back.
Okay, let's add Councillor Abbott's name to that. Any other items councillors would like to address? None? Okay, that will move on. Okay, we'll move to reports, item number 10, and that is CEO strategic planning, page 14, Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you very much. So before you is one option as a roadmap for strategic planning for the benefit of those that may not be up to speed with the sexy world of council strategic planning. In a nutshell, what this is about is setting of term goals. So normally councils, once elected shortly after, there's a meeting to discuss selection, prioritization of key council term goals, what council wants to achieve by the end of its 4-year term. That is supplemented on an annual basis going forward with sort of objectives or action items that get updated from year to year, all designed to move council and the organization toward achieving these goals. From that work, staff develop operational plans with respect to how you operationalize these things. All of this feeds into the budgeting process because oftentimes there are budget considerations associated with this. Council can then rely on that roadmap, this council strategic plan, with respect to its ongoing decision-making at the council table. It informs council's decision-making on quite a range of matters. And of course, it's instrumental with regard to council's understanding of where it wants to go with regard to the budget. So this before you is sort of a comprehensive overview of what I am suggesting as one option. There's lots of different ways to do strategic planning. I've attached as an appendix a process that I submitted in 2023 for a national award. It was a CAMO award recognized nationally as best practice around strategic planning. And that doesn't mean council won't be that wants to follow this. Council may have other ideas. One of the pitfalls around strategic planning is that it can become, if not managed well, flypaper for every issue known to humankind, and then becomes a strategic shopping list rather than a strategic plan, and it becomes very difficult to implement. I've seen strategic plans that actually have actions that work at cross purposes. So having some structure, predictability, and so forth is good for council, good for the community, good for the organization with regard to operationalizing. The process lets everyone know what to expect, what's coming down the pipe, and so forth. So this is for council's information, and I would invite questions, and if council is so minded, council can let me know if this is an approach that we'd like to try for this year. I would suggest that as soon as budgeting is finished, budgeting process is finished for 2024, council would then be in a position to pick up the work right after that with regard to strategic plan. We don't have one, council doesn't have a strategic plan, so they're sort of like catching.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, take a couple. Did you look at our previous strategic plan from the last budget? Okay. Because it mentions in here something about from our OCP. Our OCP has 8 themes. It doesn't have 4 bullets, but it's not from our OCP. Our previous strategic plan actually had 5 key areas, which we put the goals underneath. So yeah, we could work the same thing if you think is appropriate into a different form, a different way of doing it. One thing I did like your comment on is it becomes a shopping list. We had a long list that came out of our strategic plan. Some of the council, one council, Fred Bain in particular, kept telling us this is not strategic, but we couldn't stop ourselves from trying to give the CIO some direction of the shit we want to get done next year. So yeah, I acknowledge that did become part of the issue. So yeah, I'm good with it going forward, but I would like to look back at what we've done before first, so we don't do any reinventing of wheels.
Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you, if I could, please do, not to have it. Absolutely, part of the process includes bringing forward that past work that falls into it. With regard to your comment with the OCP, it's not about how the OCP is structured, it's about looking for those elements in the OCP. Because that work has already been done by the community with regard to identifying kind of those high level aspirational directional issues that council can use as a sort of baseline around that. It doesn't mean that's the only source, but it's a really good source to start from.
Okay, any further questions? No, move to item 10A2, the investment policy. The recommendation is the council approve the investment policy. Mr. Sherkoff.
The mayor. Further to comments received in the last council meeting,
Can you join us at the table just so people can hear?
Oh, sure.
Better, thank you.
further comments from the previous council meeting, the investment policy has been updated to remove some wording where it was where possible or where preferable to say the village will. It's included any sentence for any new investment would be subject to review by council. Further to Councillor Reuter's suggestions, that was the only real update to the policy.
Okay, we have a motion. Why don't we put forward a motion?
Can I
speak to this? We have a motion that council approve the investment policy.
I've got a couple of
Okay,
questions.
second, yeah, we can do those right after we've put the motion forward. Second. Do we have a second on this? Okay, I'll second it. All right, discussion, Councillor Reuter.
Yeah, Joe, on page 27, you note, sorry to make your life hard here.
Yeah, I know.
Biggest thing again. Under the credit rating box there, the preference of this policy is to invest, et cetera, et cetera. That seems a little weak and doesn't commit to much. What is that leaving us open to? If it had said the requirement under this policy is, but I mean, if it's the preference, what is the backup position?
If I may, the preference here is, so effectively what's happening here is that we are ensuring the liquidity position of any investments that are happening. The preference of the policy is to invest in higher quality credit quality investments. However, a double A lowercase could have theoretically or potentially have a higher return and still be a Schedule 2 bank or a credit union or something like that. So after that's kind of where it leaves it open to, do we have the requirement only for AAA? Then maybe limiting potential return.
Sure. So on the detail though, that you're allowing for up to 60% outside of AAA?
The portfolio. Yes.
And you're comfortable with that?
The again, further to your comments, any sort of new investment would be subject to council review.
Okay.
So that's kind of the control on any new investment.
Okay. And then on page 30, I've got a question. So the term limitation, the way that I read this is that essentially you could, correct me if I'm wrong, but that you could lock something away. You could lock 50% of the funds away for up to 4 years. And 40% of them for up to 9 years, leaving only 10% liquid. Am I reading that correctly?
I will refer to,
That's appendix B.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So under a hypothetical scenario.
the, the way this is, for the document, I may check that, but no, from, so if you look at the minimums, 50%, yes, and less than 90 days, less than 1 year. However, 60% must be liquid. So
Where's that stated in this chart?
that is.
So I'm looking here. So the way I read this chart, Joe, is that essentially you could, if I were doing this, I could lock 50% away for up to 5 years, and then another 40% for up to 10 years. That's 90% locked for between 5 or 4 and 9 years, leaving a 10% liquidity.
Council Brown?
Yeah, I'm just wondering in terms of expediting this bit, we have a standing committee on finance and audit. And we have expertise there. And I'm just gonna suggest that we refer this policy to the finance and audit committee and bring back any suggestions that they might have. I think we were talking about a $4 or $5 million of village funds being invested, and I think we're establishing a policy that's never existed before in our village, at least, that we should seek as much professional involvement as we can. We have a volunteer committee that I believe we could really benefit from. So I would suggest that we refer this policy to the finance and audit committee.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, do we need a motion on referring that?
Yeah, for a motion, please.
Could we first, I had a question here. Did you find an answer?
I guess,
Council Brown, do you want to put forward a motion?
Hold on, we had a prior conversation here. I was just waiting for an answer.
Council Brown was about to put forward a motion.
Yeah, I would move that we refer this matter to the finance and audit committee.
Okay,
And we would be prepared to allow, well, I have no control over my councillor friend in terms of he wants to get his question answered.
well, maybe mute, but do we have a second? All right, I'll second that. Okay, any discussion? Call a question. Dr. Adam?
Yeah, there's a few things I think we need to spend a little more time considering this. And I took away from the last time, Joe, that we weren't locking up and we weren't hamstringing or handcuffing ourselves around liquidity. So I'm really concerned at what Mark has just mentioned. If we could lock up 90% liquidity, that would be a concern for me.
Yeah.
And then I'm just trying to find in there, the other question last time was, this is appropriately vetted through whatever authorities allow us to invest money. Because municipalities can only invest money in a very limited way. So jumping out to me is, you could have 60% that's not AAA. How is that a secure investment that meets the criteria for a government organization which basically cannot gain more taxpayer money?
Okay.
So how does that? Yeah, I have a lot of questions. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Mr. Blackwell.
So I hate to be the examiner here, but when there's a referral motion, your conversation is limited to the referral, not to the main topic. So unfortunately, that discussion now is off the table.
Okay, all those in favor, call the question, all those in favor of deferring? Sure.
Yeah.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carried. Okay.
Hey, could I just ask, Joe, if you did have an answer, maybe I was understanding this improperly somehow.
the intent of.
Okay, Mr. Chirkoff, will, in the spirit of time here, perhaps Councilor Reuters can give you a call. I think we'll wait. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move to the committees and Lions Bay Beach Park Committee information report.
I believe you have the bird report under number 3 here. Reports. We had 10-3.
We did, sorry, that was the Carl Burr report on table. Apologies. Over to you, Carl.
Thanks. Maria can bring up the report on the screen. For those of you that don't have it in front of you, but I'm not going to refer to every word of the report. So there are two. The first one is probably the more sobering one, and that is the firefighting water reserve policy. I'll emphasize at the outset, and this is clear to me that it's not necessarily apparent in the wording of that are provided here, because of discussion the fire chief has had with me today. This applies only in two very specific circumstances: the so-called water short supply status and the so-called water constrained supply status. In these particular very low supply regimes, I'm asking council to consider and make a recommendation what I think that the consideration should be, what to do with the water that we do hold in our two tanks. Do we use it to fight fires, or do we save it for drinking water? As you by now know, if we run our mains dry for any appreciable amount of time, Coastal Health comes in and will most likely order us to close them down until they're hyperchlorinated and flushed. That will only take place in late September, when the rains reliably return. There's no point in flushing the mains only for us to run the tank out again a week later. So we wouldn't do it, because the hyperchlorination process is anything from 7 to 14-day process, requires many, many cycles. Each one of them is particularly dangerous from a public health perspective, because even though we're looking very hard, we still don't have all curb stops identified. There will be people whose taps start working who may, if they didn't get the message, drink that water. It will be full of pathogens, because once the main is dry, groundwater intrudes. Our groundwater, I'm sorry to say, is intermingled with septic system plumes. You don't drink the groundwater, not below the level of the last plume. So the EPC has discussed this, but not formalized. It's now time to formalize it in time for putting the necessary equipment and procedures in place. I propose that the worst case scenario is running the mains dry. The less worst case is getting a house burn if we are in a constrained supply situation where we don't use the last 50% of water in our tanks, or in the short supply situation, not quite as bad, where we only use the first 75% of water in the tanks, and we keep the 25 ready to go. That's pretty much it.
Hey, Councilor Brown.
Is there any legal liability of having water available and not making it available to fight a fire?
I don't know. I can tell you that my discussion with the chief, their instinct is to use every last drop of water to try and put the fire out.
Yeah.
My contention is, if the first 75% didn't do it, the next 25% isn't either. And then we face the worst case scenario, which is running out of water.
Okay,
But
I recall when we were discussing the access restriction, parking restriction to the trails, that the chief said that water wasn't a concern to fight fires because we have an ocean, and that there would be.
It was interface fires.
So yes, face fires, yeah, this is specifically
Specifically for house fires.
specifically to use the
Okay.
hydrants.
Okay.
okay, Councilor Ryder.
So a question, sorry.
Very-
So if we get to a point where Public Works would determine that our tank cannot refill in the next 12 hours, at the fill rate that it had in the previous 24. So in other words, the fill rate has dropped to half.
Yep.
That we will restrict water usage until we reach 50% capacity.
Mhm.
So hypothetically, what would happen if we had a scenario where, but for having drawn down the tank to 45%, we could have saved half the village from a fire?
It's hypothetical, yeah, I don't know, would that extra 5% have done the trick?
We don't, yeah.
That's why we need a policy around this, because that's exactly the question that will happen in the field at the time, and the proposition from the fire department is, of course, no, you come and stand with us and we'll decide on the fly.
Mr. Blackwell, and then we'll go to Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, if I could. So my minimal involvement around this general issue is, it would be a decision on the fly, made in consultation with others. If it looked like it was something that was imminent in terms of putting out the fire, I think that the policy would be ignored, it's only a policy. Whereas if it was completely out of control, I think at that point, the decision would be different, but at that point, you'd wonder if there's any point in having drinking water, to be quite honest.
Or they don't want to see the language in there.
Councillor Abbott?
So in my discussions with one of the IC members yesterday, yes, what is it Sunday, about this and other things. He brought up the 2015 situation we had then, and okay, he hasn't got numbers, but anecdotally think we were worse off then now than we are now. I don't know whether that's accurate or not. We don't have the stats to know.
I disagree.
You just, okay, fair enough. And reference algorithm you guys came up with the help of someone back then that you used to sort of forecast when you would get to that figure. And seemed that was helpful in preventing someone having a hair trigger, for lack of a better term. So my thought was, should we take this report and go back to the infrastructure committee and have kind of fulsome discussion on how we get to these triggers? I mean, they're probably the right people to analyze the data, potentially challenge your conclusions or not, I don't know.
This is as a result of that original discussion. This is for an even worse supply situation that we have not been in before. I'll just remind council that the plan is to keep the tanks as full as possible. In fact, in the summer, we have very, very short fill cycles to try and make sure that none of the river is running by more than
That's why,
necessary.
yeah.
So we're continuing going up now. This is for a worse situation than even in 2015. No objection to the IC looking at this, but this distills that discussion. This is on top of that.
Okay, Councillor Abbott, any further?
Well, like Michael did earlier, I would like to sort of suggest that we defer this to the infrastructure committee meeting, come back with their thoughts, and then make a decision on what the policy looks like.
Okay, just before we put that motion forward, I appreciate all the work you've done on this, Carl, but it did come late, and the fire chief, I don't think has had proper input. So I'd like to see this deferred as well, and then after we've had the IC and the input from the fire chief, then we can entertain it.
That's fine by me. I will just say this is a hard decision. This is when you actually earn your salaries.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so motion to defer, Councillor Abbott.
Yeah, I'll put that forward.
Okay, second.
To
Refer.
Refer to committee.
Yeah.
Refer.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Blackwell.
Just a recommendation to the chair. I may find value in inviting the fire chief to that meeting as well, so that he can provide input.
That'd be great.
This is really the EPC's purview. But I noticed that meeting still hasn't taken place, so maybe it's any forum, doesn't matter.
Yeah. I
Okay,
would like to have seen this discussion in the EPC meeting myself.
yeah, and I think maybe we can kill two birds with one stone, get the fire chief there and have him on site. Okay, great.
Or we could have both those meetings and get an EPC meeting together.
All right, item 10, thank you very much.
No, one more report.
One more.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So that is the water shortage policy, which I suggest is slightly less contentious. It's really just defining some statuses. And I make 3 recommendations. The first has been somewhat superseded by discussion I've had today with Lidstone. Essentially to do the things that we need to do for this coming summer around additional ways to charge for water. We need to rewrite our water bylaw, which I was hoping to get around by only rewriting Schedule A, which is the one that sets the tariff every year. there's something like 34 Schedule As that mend the bylaw over the years. No, he tells me we need to start afresh, clean sheet of paper. So that's going to start tonight, in fact, so that I can get. I already started, to be perfectly honest, but it's going to take a while. So I don't actually need council to give increased or additional sanction, so we can skip the first part. The second part is that, as you know, we have an outdoor water use bylaw that has 3 conservation levels. In discussions that CEO and I had with Metro, very valuable. They gave us more time than I would have thought anybody felt necessary, as we're not a member of the GBWD. They were extremely helpful. They've since given us a whole lot of extra resource, including us inviting us to be members of the Water Research Foundation. Even though we don't have the money to pay the fee, they're going to pay the fee. It's quite nice. At the time of that discussion, I thought, do we want to assess whether we want to go onto Metro's water conservation levels, if for no other reason than to leverage the marketing that they put out in the media and television and billboards and buses and all that stuff. So I had a look, and I've given you essentially the summaries that they provide. It quickly became apparent to me that we do not. Why? Because their conservation is specifically to save raw water, not treated water. We need our conservation levels when our 2 creeks run dry, not when their reservoirs will never run dry. In fact, some of the discussions we had around their plan to increase the capacity of Capitalina Reservoir by dropping the level of the intake. We asked what the budget for that project was. It's $4 billion just to change the level of the intake. That's with a B. Yeah. The CAO was raving as we drove through their palatial facilities, saying, boy, they've got a lot of money. Boy, they've got a lot of money. Anyway, so what I'm asking for is to avoid sort of public questions. Why aren't we doing metros? I am asking council to re-endorse House because they're actually better for us. I'm not going to ask for that now. And then the third part is water shortage statuses. The first one is code red, and not coincidentally, that matches our outdoor water use level 3 color. I even have a picture of the sign there in case you don't believe it. And so that obviously implies we go on to level 3 during code red, but some other things take place. For this, I need council's endorsement, because there are some things that we will do in there, including entering properties using the building inspector, who has the authority to do that, to lock out irrigation. Irrigation is not allowed under level 3 conservation, but believe it or not, it has been used in before. This year, we really mean it. There is going to be 0 tolerance for transgressions on the bylaw. I've laid out what it is that I want to happen in code red. I will also just say I had a good discussion this morning with a guy at the Capital Regional District who has very successfully used infrared cameras at night and visual cameras during the day from 8 kilometers away to look at their backcountry. They're not cheap. I won't scare you off by telling you what the price was yet, because I'm sure we can tweak some of the features.
Drone too.
We have a drone, we have a commercial drone, we have a commercial drone operator license. I don't know what the federal regs are around that, but I will not tolerate people watering the lawns under level 3. Lawns are going to die. There's a piece coming that I'm proposing for this Friday's Village update, that if you're considering whether or not to buy landscaping, this is not a year to spend a lot of money on your landscaping, because it's quite likely that we will be going to level 3, and this time we're going to come down hard. Water waste is already not allowed under any level, so obviously we're tracking that. 0 mercy, tickets instantly. But the hope is there'll be no tickets. The hope is that people understand that this is an unprecedented year, and when I say unprecedented, I mean it. Never unprecedented. 2015 is going to be child's play compared to this one.
Okay, Mr. Burr, what are you looking for on this?
So I'll just run through the other 3 codes. These are levels that we've never had before. They're when we're getting very close. Code white is the important one. That's when we don't have any water anymore. Then the issue about fighting fires is moot because there's no water in the tank. We've used it. We will have to shut off the water mains and the 550 curb stops we can find. There's about 30 that we're looking for hard. It's going to involve asphalt cutting and hydrobacking, pretty expensive, but we're doing it anyway. There will have to be a fire watch instituted. There will have to be curbside barrels will be placed, topped up by roving tanker, non-potable, for people to dip into, fill their toilets and wash the dishes. Those are the two aspects that houses need to remain habitable. Flushing toilets, dishwashing, believe it or not. Everything else you can do elsewhere. I guess you can eat out every night as well. Mutual aid agreements, which will need to be negotiated before we get there. And then what I've mentioned under the firefighting reserve policy is the hyperchlorination and flushing of the mains, which will only take place in late September when the rains come. It's quite possible, I'm warning us now, that houses will be out of water for weeks to months, depending on when the creeks stop running. When will that be? Don't know.
Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you. Just further comment to what Mr. Burr is referring to, just to remind council that council has submitted 2 letters to the province, 2 different ministries, requesting a meeting to discuss this. So these letters went out 2 weeks ago, recently, requesting meetings to discuss this issue and to seek both short-term and long-term support with respect to resolving this issue or supporting the village as it seeks to navigate its way through this issue.
Yeah, I mean, these are by no means the only things we're doing. These are the things that I need council's endorsement on. Now, it's policy, not a bylaw, meaning that it's relatively easy to change if, you know, events change or new information comes to light. I'm not asking for the first one because that's been superseded already. There's no point in re-corroborating elements of the existing bylaw because we've already, the council's already told us that we need to change it. But the other two, for public purposes and knowing where we stand, I would ask you to consider, as recommended, I asked for the council re-endorses outdoor water use bylaw number 484's conservation levels, preference to other possible levels, other than, I've got to mention this, if you want, directing staff to change the bylaw level slightly to allow hand watering of food plants, fruit, vegetables, herbs, under all levels. So that's the consideration there, and just to stop talking so that you can talk. And the third thing I'm asking is the council endorses the red, orange, and white water shortage statuses.
Okay, let's go around the table. Councillor Conlon, any comments?
Wow, that's a real eye opener.
Good.
Yeah, got me. I full support. I do think that the watering of vegetables and so forth precarious because you could have a hobbyist gardener versus somebody who's actually, so I don't know, kind of a gray zone there.
The research is you want to absolutely not abrogate equity for people who may need to grow food,
Yeah.
or for health reasons, economic reasons.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's one aspect to doing this, and those of you that grow anything know, if you let your fruit tree grow, that's 30, 40 years of investment down the drain.
Yeah, fair statement.
Okay, Councillor Broughton.
I have nothing to add. I think it's a very serious situation. You have to reinforce the action we have.
Hey, Councillor Ryder. I'll hold for a moment. Councillor Abbott.
So Colin, the thing that's been added is the 3 color codes.
Yeah, the first one, red, is level 3, but with some additional provisions.
Right.
None of which are, outside our purview anyway. I just want council to acknowledge that they exist.
The current we have up to stage 3, which you're saying is what red is. And then we have stage 4 in the previous bylaw, which is
No,
Everything's shut down anyway.
no, level 3 in Lions Bay is everything shut down, no outdoor water use. It's Metro that has level 4.
Under our current,
Yeah,
Okay, so then I'm looking at these tables wrong.
yeah, don't be looking at Metros.
No, the nice pretty colored tables, metros. That's the wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, conservation level 3 is red. Okay. And then you go to the other ones. Okay, and these triggers currently, once again, are in your domain of review for lack of.
Never been hit before.
Yeah.
I hope we never hit them, but if we do,
Yeah,
we need to know what to do.
I do the same as Jamie, I'm a little concerned about watering vegetables. I think in the past, well, I know in the past, but I've heard him say it, or so I've heard it said, previous workshop managers and others have turned a blind eye to that.
I think I used there'll be no blind eye this year.
Yeah.
Can't afford it.
So if you make a rule that you are allowed to water vegetables and fruit trees as opposed to turning a blind eye to that,
There'll be some overspray, yeah.
there's going to be, yeah, who's actually deciding whether it's bearing fruit or not, tree? I mean, I think that becomes somewhat problematic.
That's
These are very draconian measures and should make us all uncomfortable, certainly makes me uncomfortable. But then having a workaround for some, that doesn't seem to make sense either.
It's a slippery slope, I know, that's why I made it optional, because, yeah, I'm obviously conscious that some people might loosely interpret what edible plants are.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got a little time to make a decision on this. Not a lot of time, but we've got some time.
True.
Well, we've got another meeting too. Should we take this one back to the IC as well? You know, see what, I'm not sure what.
I think this is political, it's not technical.
Okay, this was kind of dropped on us late. I'd like a little more time to digest this. And I think as Councillor Abbott says, we do have a little bit of time, so whether the IC committee reviews or we just have a chance to look at it a little bit more in depth. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I'd like to balance it against the fire smart as well in terms of when we have the water, is there a way that the water can be made available to try to keep the trees around someone's home alive? You know, I mean, there's a real balancing act there, right? And
Well, then we'd be under level 1 or 2 and go ahead,
yeah.
is the point, if you want to keep your
Yeah,
trees
no,
alive.
so
you know,
level 3 is a very.
Under level 2, you're within your rights to fill up water barrels using your hose.
Yeah.
We want you to, because if you don't use the water, it's flowing into the ocean.
Yeah.
It's under level 3 that we're in trouble, and then these 2 new levels, orange and white. I mean, orange is more dangerous than white, but that's the only color I can think of. Yeah, so, you know, the outdoor water use has actually proved its value over the last 14, well, I don't know how many years, let's say 10. So,
Yes.
under level 2, do level 2 things.
So, okay, Councillor Abbott?
Yeah, so just one last thing, just sort of rounding off where I was thinking when I was talking earlier. You know, I referred to them as draconian measures. It seems heavy-handed. I understand we need to do it. I'm just not sure if we, there's a little bit of, I mean, you smiled and you said people's eyes are open and the fear-mongering's working, but we don't really want to be in the business of fear-mongering, even though we need to get the message out. So I feel like, yeah, we can take a little time and just see if there is a less heavy-handed way of presenting the same solution.
Blackwell.
So through you, I think communications consultation again rears its head. And certainly there are many ways to communicate significant issues. And I think part of this absolutely needs to consider thoughtful communication program.
Mhm.
Who, when, what, it's important.
So do we table this or refer it to the next meeting?
I would table this to the next meeting. Yeah, you're not referring it.
I'll just perhaps interject one last parting remark, and that is, I was stunned to find on the weekend, talking to some people in Lions Bay, they had no idea we were facing a water shortage this summer. Well informed, smart, regular people, get out,
Haven't noticed the lack of snow.
no concert. And I'm certain they're not the only ones. So it is part of a PR issue. I think people need to sit up and take notice. Unfortunately, it's council that's gonna have to pull the trigger, and that's not easy to do, but trigger needs to be pulled.
Okay,
So
well-
question.
Councillor Ryder.
I, unlike some of my other colleagues, like number two. I think it makes a lot of sense. I guess when you ask us to re-endorse, you're just wanting us to underline and put some,
It's policy, not a bylaw.
Yeah.
No rules have changed, yeah.
okay. All right, and I presume, did I understand you correctly, that this one you feel is a little more urgent? So I understand there's a IC meeting this week, so I presume it'll come to that one and,
It can wait, to the next council meeting. There's no accident that I rushed this one so that we could get onto the schedule, yeah.
Okay, motion to table. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Carl.
Okay, 10B1, Life Bay Beach Park, over to Councillor Pella, Councillor Brown.
Okay, I have submitted a report which is part of the minutes. And we are in discussions in close, which will continue in closed session. But I just wanted to go on record. There were two comments during the opening today about the really sincere thank yous to the Beach Park Committee. And I just really want to amplify that. They've done an outstanding job and really have put us in a great position to do some great things for the park. So I would like to point out the village update, the special village update, which came out yesterday. That was put together by committee members, wrote that on the weekend, and subsequent to meetings with the lawyer and different people over last week. And there was they had been given the information that when they had something to report, that they would be able to put that to the community in a special village update, which they asked, and that was facilitated. So thank you for that. They've given a very brilliant outline of the background and where everything's at, and I would just really encourage all residents to make sure that they've read that and really encourage and support as we move forward with the Beach Park project. It's going to be a really exciting project, and there's some great things going to happen. So and we're looking forward to being able to give much more exact information going forward. There's been a lot of confusion over the last little while as a result of lack of information. So, and when there is a lack of information, often a void will create inaccurate information, which appears to have been happening. So anyway, we're really looking forward to moving forward. And the committee basically has reported out and has passed it over to staff to complete the project.
Great. Councillor Conlon, anything to add?
Just kudos to the volunteers and their dedicated countless hours and time, and it's so much appreciated, and yeah, it will be a great project, and we look forward to having staff take it across the finish line and have every member there at the end bailiff.
Okay, great. All right, next item, we'll go to Councillor Reuter, and you put something on the agenda here,
yes.
and we'll pass it over to you.
So this is a request for a decision. A group of residents have been circulating a petition and asked me to bring this to the table. It's essentially, I think they're up to 65 names at this point with comments. I have not submitted those into the record. There's been some discussions that are rather spirited online on Facebook today, which are further to the concerns that they have in terms of harassment. If they put their names forward. But there are 65 residents who've signed up, and the full text of what they're asking is that the undersigned residents of Lions Bay are concerned at the inflated cost of the beach park project at a time when critical water infrastructure is in dire need of attention and funding. They're asking that council demonstrate the fiscal prudence promised in 2022 in the campaign election platforms and limit the cost of nice to haves in favor of must haves in our village. That a budget of 1.07 million was approved by council for the beach park project, and this includes a 75% grant funding, and that our share should be around 267,500. But that based on a recent report by the committee chair, Michael Broughton, we know the jetty has now been removed, meaning the full cost of this item will now be 100% taxpayer funded, and that translates to a budget overrun of 200,000 or likely more before work even begins.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councillor Bowden.
I'm sorry, the information that's being provided is not accurate. And I take great exception to it being read into the record by apparently an anonymous group, but this is extraordinary to bring something before council and say, well, we can't possibly tell you who's responsible for this because they might be harassed. I mean, that's absurd, patently absurd. This is irresponsible that this motion, this is coming forward. There's a petition, quote unquote, was put online and containing inaccurate information. As I said a little bit earlier, that there is an active bid currently in play in this community. There is a limited amount of information to be provided as a result of an active bid in place. And I think this being on the agenda is out of order. And that it should just be ruled out of order this.
All right, Mr. Blackwell, any comments on this tabled item?
It's not tabled.
This came at the
On
time, it was not put in the agenda.
Yeah, it was
So it's
approved.
on table.
It was
It's on
approved.
table.
Do you have any comments on this?
Where would I begin on this one? So in my view, these sorts of issues are best dealt with not at a council table, in my opinion. Where members of the community have concerns, they should be reaching out to the appropriate individuals to get clarification. Where people talk amongst themselves without doing that, without connecting with the key individuals, sets up problems, speculation, and so on. So my recommendation is, if members of the community have concerns about any of these issues, I'm always available to talk to people so that they have the recent or the most up-to-date information available.
So this is, of course, this has gone out for bid. So if they have questions, they would come to staff. Is that what you're recommending?
Yeah, to me, that's the best way to deal with de-escalating any concerns and any stigmatization and all of the rest of the stuff that seems to be occurring. It's normal process, it's talk to staff. You have a question about municipal operations, talk to staff.
So on a point of order, the orders of the day are that this is part of the agenda, and that's what I'm trying to complete here.
So what is the motion? Put forward a motion.
Yeah, I'll get to that. So,
Just so that we're focused, please put forward.
yeah,
the motion.
I will get to that. If I could
I'm
complete-
asking you for the motion, and then we'll speak to the motion. Okay?
Sorry, on point of order, why do we no longer have discussions on items and always have to have motions? We were told by the CEO this bad practice, you should allow discussion.
The format is you put a motion forward, and that keeps some order to the process, and then we speak to it.
You don't have to have
Council
a
makes
motion.
decisions
So-
via motions, is my understanding.
That is the
And
way.
This council shuts down discussion by a
No.
motion, to be honest.
We put forward a motion. So was there some recommendation that you had or a motion, Council Ryder?
Yes, and I will get to that in a moment.
I'm asking you as chair, I'm asking you for that.
I am giving the background to the recommendation, and it's on the table, and these are the orders of the day. So if you let me finish here, we can get to it.
Continue on.
Thank you. We also learned from the Broughton report that the cost of the playscape has risen to $225, which is an overrun of $150. Residents have not been informed as to the cost of the washroom. However, simple math based on the report appears to indicate an increased budget of around $650,000, which is an overrun of $250.
Point of order.
Okay,
Councillor Reuter is reading incorrect information.
You've made that point. Point of order. Please stop interrupting.
Councillor
Silence,
Reuter is reading
Okay.
into record false information.
right, okay,
He
Mr.
is
Blackwell,
reading
as the
inaccurate,
staff.
false information into the record as if it were fact.
He's reading
That
it.
is
Okay.
an assault to this table. It is
Mr.
an
Blackwell,
assault to the honor of this
all right,
table,
thank you very much.
and I take
Councillor
great
Reuter.
exception to it.
Mr. Blackwell. This bidding process is under the staff's overview. Is this information correct or is it out of order?
The information being circulated by that petition is not correct.
Okay, that's all I need to hear. All right, then I think, do we have a motion to either defer this? You can come back, Councilor Reuter, because the information is not correct. And we can't have that continue on. Mr. Blackwell?
So if I could, so what Councillor Reuter was reading is something from the petition. Councillor Reuter's proposed motions are, there's a relationship to that there, that they don't specifically reflect the content of what he's reading. They're sort of separate issues.
Okay, can we get the motions on the table?
Sure, I'm almost there.
Oh,
If you want to keep stop interrupting, then I can. get there.
okay,
Could we ask that the motions be
Okay.
put on the table?
I'm gonna hand out the code of conduct here, okay? For all of us to look at. Councilor Ryder. All of us sign this, okay? So I'll remind everyone. Right? Please take a look at the code of conduct. Carry yourself accordingly.
When you're done, I'll continue.
Councilor Ryder.
Thank you. Residents have not been informed as to the cost of the washroom, and they want more information, and much is unclear, including whether or not the architect designed washroom can be built for the allocated budget, or whether the kayak racks and the Lori Beck Pavilion are still included, and other items such as landscaping. Without even knowing all the current totals, it appears to have an overrun of $600,000 or
I take great
56% of the
exception
original
to that
budget.
number.
Is that a
being
point of
in the
order?
Record, a point of order. The 600,000 is absurd, and I object to it being written.
Okay, Councilor Ryder, will you please refrain from putting inaccurate information out?
That's a matter of opinion. We are
It's
asking,
not
number
opinion,
one,
excuse me, point of order.
how much long do you want to cover
A
this
piece of
up?
information.
Okay,
a piece of information
15-minute
being
recess.
provided.
Thank you. 15-minute recess.
You want to go to court?
So
Okay,
to
Councilor Ryder,
continue,
please put forward the motion.
what the residents are asking for is that council release the costs accrued thus far and a breakdown of the budget as originally approved and the new and expected final cost to residents without delay, and that staff be directed to bring the project back within budget before it be allowed to continue, and that taxpayers be consulted via a thorough have your say should council wish to allocate extra funding to the project, and that this should follow the same process as the have your says during the previous council term and not town halls where only an insignificant fraction of residents are able to participate. It should also be noted before we get to the recommendation that members of council not serving on the Beach Park Committee have never been provided with a full accounting of the project costs
Point
and
of order.
overruns to
Yeah,
date. That
Councillor,
these should first and foremost be
So
provided.
we have a point of order, Councilor
Yeah,
Ryder.
that is actually inaccurate. The budget's provided November the 7th, January the 23rd, and I believe February the 20th.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, is this crossing over into territory that we covered in closed?
Not yet.
Okay,
So here's the recommendation. If we want to move on with the meeting, everybody good? Good. The recommendation is that council resolve to
Point of
address
order.
the
Yeah,
concerns.
point of
raised
order.
as
Councilor
follows.
Broughton, Councilor Broughton has the floor.
The code of conduct states that a council member may speak to a question or a motion of a council meeting only if that council member addresses first the chair. That just did not occur. And I found the tone of the councillor very disrespectful. And I'm wondering if the councillor would be prepared to apologize for his behavior.
Councillor Reuter, you've been handed the code of conduct. Any comments?
I didn't actually see a code of conduct here. Sorry.
This is, we all agreed to this. I handed it out to all parties at the table.
I would be prepared to address Councillor Broughton's concerns if he first wants to issue an apology for the rampages he's been doing on social media today against residents.
Is that pertinent to our conversation
I
right
think
now?
that's.
I don't think any of it
That's
is
one reason why we
I
put
speak
forward.
only in connection with the matter being debated.
Good, so if I can bring the recommendation forward. So that council resolved to address the concern of residents as follows, that all project costs accrued to date, a breakdown of the original approved budget, and accurate current costs of all items in the funding agreement be released to council and residents as soon as possible. And two, that council consult residents via a thorough have your say as to their priorities for the beach park and its cost to taxpayers as promised in early 2023. And I will leave it at that.
Okay, that's a motion.
That is the motion.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Okay, any comments? Councillor Conlon?
I feel that perhaps this motion is premature in respect to the conversation that we had already been closed.
Okay, Councillor Broughton?
I'm very, very concerned that inaccurate information has been disseminated in our community using such vehicles as Lions Bay Neighbors, which on my understanding, I've received an apology from one of the what are they called, managers anyway of Lions Bay Neighbors, because Penny Nelson posted a Lions Bay Neighbors, the beach park project overruns are currently $600,000 from the numbers we can see. Residents are asking the council, blah, blah, blah.
On a point of order, that doesn't sound very respectful right there.
I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry, what's the point
Could
of
you
order?
clarify what the
A lack
what
of
was
respect.
disrespectful?
I'm sorry, what is out of order?
I'm unclear on what would be just.
I think your tone may be somewhat disrespectful.
Oh, pardon me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anything
I would
further, Councillor
apologize
Broughton?
if my tone was in any way disrespectful.
Okay. Anything further?
My
Councillor Broughton?
concern is that I've just been accused of a rampage on social media. Very unclear what that's referring to. But here's, an item that was posted yesterday. Is Ms. Nelson one of the people who is protecting him? I mean, this is.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell?
Thank you. My recommendation is, this is not a fruitful discussion for council.
I agree.
I can see this. Irrespective of the motions on the table, there's a larger discussion that I think needs to happen because it's a discussion that needs to happen. And rather than sort of prosecuting the various aspects of he said, she said, this happened then, no, it didn't, yes, it did. The formal productive way of dealing with this thing is let the process play out.
Okay, I'll call a question.
Sorry.
All those in favor?
Okay, I've had my hand up for a
Okay,
while. I'm not only gonna
Councillor
do
Abbott,
speak.
apologies, Councillor Abbott.
Okay, thank you. My hand was up for a while. quite a while.
Okay,
Okay, just a couple of comments. I think we can all do better in communicating. And if we all be more open in communication and put more information out there, we wouldn't have these kind of things happening up. Michael, for you to sit in a council meeting and read off Facebook accusing a resident of something is completely out of order. I don't know how you can see that as not in order. We're not in the business of here discussing debate in
I'm
Facebook.
not accusing him of anything. I'm simply stating that there's a posting yesterday.
Michael,
Sir,
stop.
you don't have the
okay,
floor.
You
excuse
don't
me,
have the floor.
let's stick to the motion.
I think
Okay,
this-
stick to the motion, please.
This council could do well
Yeah.
to stay away from social media.
Stick to the motion, please.
This is the.
That's not the motion. There's a motion on the
Everyone else
table.
gets to do whatever I can
Okay.
do for Facebook and I don't.
Continue on.
Once again, I'm the only one that doesn't. get to
Continue
do-
on then. Continue on, Councillor Abbott. I'd like us to stick to the motion though. As Mr. Blackwell said, this discussion is really not productive for the community.
I agree, but Michael reading Facebook wasn't sticking to a motion, you never said a word to him.
Carry on.
Okay, I will take the high ground, I will stick to the motion and I'll stop speaking, but can you ask everyone else to do it?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll call a question. All those in favor?
I'm sorry, I'm unclear what the motion
Can you
is.
read the motion again?
Yes, my
Councillor
pleasure.
Reuter?
That all project costs accrued to date, a breakdown of the original approved budget and accurate current costs of all items in the funding agreement be released to council and residents as soon as possible. And two, that council consult residents via a thorough have your say as to their priorities for the beach park and its cost to taxpayers as promised in early 2023.
Okay, before I call the question, does this cross over into the conversation in closed?
I don't, it's close, but I think it's fair. It's fine.
Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion defeated. Okay, we'll move to the next item, and that is C1 and the parking task force and the recommendation that the information report and recommendations from Lions Way Parking Task Force be accepted. Task force recommendations, I'll just read the first three because they're there. You'll take them as read. Establish a parking committee, that's short term. Move parking for visitors to the gravel pit, that's medium to long term. And control parking hours at Kelvin Grove, that's short term. And there's a number of others. If there's any questions, we can go into that. Otherwise, we'll take it as read. Any comments, questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
good comment. The general comment to all of these task forces, the way they're presented here. First of all, and I've made this point before, and I was going to say it again, I'm not looking for a debate and an argument. These task force were not mandated by council, so effectively, they do not have council mandate, they do not have a terms of reference, so they don't get to make recommendations for council to accept. The way this is worded is very problematic. To say you're calling them a task force, they're making a recommendation and you're asking for us to accept them. If we accept them effectively, you're giving direction. Council is now giving direction to do all of these things. None of them are very well spelled out. None of them are very clear what the next action is. We should be receiving these things. We should not be accepting any recommendations.
Okay, Councillor Broughton.
I would support that, what is the current motion to accept them?
They all say accept.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, these were presented to you and staff. Any comments?
I would concur that I think the better language to use is that they be received. And if they are, by virtue of adopting the agenda, they're inherently received. But I guess this is an extra received. I think it's just fantastic input for the community overall, for council, for staff. And have this on the radar, I think is excellent. So
Excellent.
receiving that information facilitates.
Sorry, can I just comment? I did agree with all of that. I did think it's great information on what, it's not what I'm saying, it's just that the process, the procedure is wrong.
I think we are unanimously agreeing, which is a
And,
wonderful event at the stable.
I have no problems with that. That was presented to staff, so if in the future, if you've got any recommendations on how to adjust that, feel free.
Yeah.
Can I
So
make one
receive-
point?
Councillor Ryder?
Yeah, thank you. We received some guidance on this that I'd just like to remind my colleagues of from a former corporate officer, Deanna Campbell. You might want to consult the June 11th email we received from her. I guess these groups would be thought of as working groups or engagement groups, and that typically they have their own separate terms of reference, and that those terms of reference would normally come to council for approval. So if these are working groups, then they should have had terms of reference that would have come to council for approval. So I think it would be better in the future if we follow that practice. If we have working groups, that they create terms of reference, bring them to council for approval, and then they can be legitimate working groups or task forces. So that is the best advice that we received at the time.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell, you were the one that recommended that these task force can be called at any given time. Any comments?
Yeah, thanks for putting me in the role of referee again. So
I'm
here's-
asking you
here's-
this question
so
because
here's-
prior to this, we had the community reaching out for parking, highway noise, and the translink. And the council could not make a decision, and I came to you and said, what do we do? The community is crying out for a voice. And what did you recommend?
A task,
And I would like you to speak up.
a task force.
Okay. And did you give any parameters to that? You said a task force was very informal, was, as I recall it.
Yeah,
And I don't think this is asking too much for you to step up and speak up, because you're speaking up for the community.
thank you. So, task forces are established through a certain process, for certain. However, I would also say that there's a larger goal to be served here. And the larger goal is communication with the community, however that happens. So a task force is one that is established through council in terms of references, correctly stated, is set and so on. That task force is doing work for council. But that doesn't preclude other opportunities for the community to get together and have conversations and come forward to their elected.
So I'm just gonna interrupt you there. You advised me that it was a mayor's task force, that it wasn't a council task force. So does that require me to go to council and lay out all these parameters? Because that's not how I understood your instructions.
So mayor's task force is the name of it, for sure. If that's, it can be called by any name, the task force, the mayor's task force. It is quite common for mayors to take the lead on issues like this. There are many, many examples of that. I think these are fantastic initiatives for a mayor to take on. But the standard protocol to having an official task force is one that's vetted and adopted through council. But it doesn't mean that that's the only vehicle available to facilitate communication.
So you advised me, because we as a council couldn't agree on a parking committee, a connector committee, or a highway noise. So you advised me that a mayor's task force could be put together to put forward recommendations, and that's what was done. So are you now saying that in the future that we need to go to council for that?
So as I've said, I would, given the size of this community, it's and the level of involvement, I wouldn't be sweating the details of what it's called. It's about the goal. What is the goal? The goal is to seek information from the community and feed that into the decision-making matrix. Whether it be a task force, a working group, it doesn't really matter as long as the work is happening. If you're asking procedurally for a certain architecture around how meetings happen, well, there are standard protocols without a doubt.
But I'm asking the instructions that you provided to me, because right now we're just going around in circles.
So why don't we move on?
So we either move on, and next time when I ask you for guidance, just give me the straightforward guidance. If you've got some other idea, please tell me at that time, because we've gone through 90 days with 3 task force. Okay, we've had a lot of volunteers put forward here. So if you've got something different next time, right up front, put the guidance out there.
Can I,
I certainly did.
okay,
Okay, Councilor Roy.
yeah, I just wanna, I think the takeaway for us here is that we should be moving forward in a procedurally correct way. And if I hear you correctly, that task forces, working groups, that you're agreeing that procedurally correctly, if we want to proceed that way, that they should have terms of reference and bring them to council. And that's the best practice that we should likely be following. Do I understand that correctly?
Do you?
Yes.
Thank you. If council is minded to facilitate the creation of any sort of working structure, then it needs a set of terms of reference. But that doesn't preclude the community to come together by whatever name it wants to call itself, like these, talk amongst themselves and come forward to council, just like this has happened. That's completely legitimate. It's not under council's control in that situation. It's a grassroots driven initiative. All these are grassroots driven initiatives. The name conveys procedural situation, as you rightly say. but they're not they don't have to be mutually exclusive. Going forward, I guess it would, and I mentioned this a while ago, that, unfortunately, the better work, there may be better descriptors of what this group is, but the name doesn't matter. It's about the content that matters. Certainly, it's better for council to make decisions around what sorts of meetings and groups and so forth it wants to establish to facilitate the work of council. But as I say, just to reinforce the fact that it doesn't preclude grassroots entities coming together to do their own work, and presenting that to council. So it's a name sort of.
Councilor Broughton.
Through the mayor. I think the higher order value here is community consultation. And whatever vehicle we can use to involve the community, value the community's input, that's the goal. And so I think an issue that our council has had is that we argue about words and agendas and other things, and the House and other things are not getting done. And I think that we need to, as part of our strategic plan discussions, is ensure that we are generating outcome for the community, for the benefit of this village.
Okay, motion to receive this report.
Community members.
Motion to receive this second. All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed, carried. Okay, next one was a connector task force, motion to receive this task force.
So moved.
Okay, second. Any discussion?
No.
Oh, okay, I'll just highlight that number one item on that was the repair of the jetty. Number two was the staircase by the village office. Has not gone unnoticed, that it's not complete, or it's been out of service for a year. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, next item, highway noise task force, Councilor Broughton.
Move acceptance or move receipt.
Okay, second.
Could I speak? Could I make a comment?
Yes, Councilor Broughton.
The recommendations, again, our mandate, the mandate of the committee, as I understood it, was to try to take a 90-day timeline and try to find some items that would make a difference for the summer. And so we've identified, or the group has identified those, and we'll attempt to move forward with those. One of the issues that came up while these discussions were happening was that the Miller Capilano contract is up this year. And that one of the issues that the committee is very concerned about was the enforcement of the sound level agreement, which there's having difficulty identifying where it is, who enforces it, how that all works. But what the committee asked me to point out to council was that this has become a time-sensitive issue, that a number of the members of the committee or of the task force are hoping that a committee will be formed in the very near future in order to ensure that Lions Bay brings its concern of highway noise to bear on any contract discussions and with Ministry of Highways. And so my suggestion is that there will be the suggestion of a committee brought back. I'm not sure what the structure would look like as yet, but in terms of reference, all the standard protocols should be followed. But one of the things that has come out of the this community consultation is that this information, which is very valuable information, and likely will be of great interest and great concern to a lot of residents. Whether or not, how much it's gonna address motorcycle issues, difficult to know, because motorcycles were out in force this weekend already, so. But anyway, noise is a very serious medical concern to a number of people, and it's not just a nuisance factor. There's a number of things that were raised that will come forward.
Okay, any comments? No, all those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Okay, item 10D, emergency, the fire rescue dispatch report, Mr. Blackwell.
It's just been your attention, there was another resolution at the bottom of that list of 3. Council wanted to turn their mind to it, but I recommend staff perspective, not to, just bring it to your attention that it exists.
Sorry, which one was that? Right. Yeah, I think
We're receiving.
moved over, we're receiving it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, item 10B, emergency fire rescue, report. Motion to receive,
Move to receive.
second,
Second,
all in favor?
aye.
Vote carried. Okay, resolution, noise relaxation request, recommendation that council grant an exception to noise bylaw number 283.
So moved.
Okay, second,
Second.
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed, carried. Okay, correspondence, and we'll pass it over to Councillor Proughton.
Okay, I move receipt of all the letters that have been forwarded initially. I just point out that, the G1 to G7 are variation on the same letter expressing a concern. The letter was posted on a I believe a hiking concern website, and I believe there was, sincere concern expressed by a number of individuals. I think the council should just be advised of community, of people outside the community expressing some concerns. The residents' correspondence, I just moved receipt of those. I believe all of these either have been or will be addressed. The issues to do with the beach park, I believe the financial aspects, there will be information forthcoming on that. Mr. Mackey's concern about hydro failure, I think we were all pretty concerned when there was a number of power outages. I'm not sure what council's will would be on that one. The BDO financial statement audit, Ms. Craig's expressed concerns. I believe council is also waiting to receive information from BDO on that one. Mr. Langford's parking petition about the mayor and the parking committee are aware of the concerns there. So essentially, I would ask that we receive these letters as read.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell.
If I could, because these are part of the agenda, they are automatically received.
Okay.
Moved off the agenda, so you don't need formal resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any comments?
Yeah, one comment.
Councillor Ryder?
Yeah, thank you. On page 73 and 76 are correspondence from two residents, which are again concerns regarding the beach park costs and asking us to pay attention to budget and costs as we had originally promised. So
Yes.
I hope those are being read by everybody.
Okay, Councillor Allen.
The first letter, from Gail Craig about the financial statements and the video audit. I'm sure there's something if there's anything to tell us, something might want to tell us in close, potentially. But to her point, I can verify that what she said is completely accurate. We have always received the audit in an open meeting. Residents have been in attendance and have included the management letter. It has never been done in closed before. So I would like us to get some confirmation from whether it's other municipalities or best practices about whether financial statements and audits should be in a closed meeting. I don't think they should be. And it certainly hasn't happened in the previous 5 years. Or 4 years, I guess.
Okay.
I've done one since.
Mr. Blackwell.
This has been a concern raised by council before. I've had that conversation with BDO. My experience has always been closed across a number of jurisdictions. I had that conversation with BDO, who does this work for a number of many jurisdictions. They confirm that it's always done and closed. But
They didn't do it in closed in Lions Bay. I can guarantee you that.
They've done it here for years.
And they've done it for years.
I'm a messenger here. I'm just telling you what the BDO said. So I will circle back and ask the question.
Ask me whether the Lions Bay request they're doing it open or why was it different here? Because it's.
Okay. All right, anything further?
Well,
Councilor Broughton?
just to the point, you know, we've always done it this way in Lion Spade. We also only had one bank account. And we had money, you know, $4 million under invested, and, you know, I would say that there's some things that we need to change. So, you know, and we need to look at best practice, so.
Okay.
If I could make a
All
comment.
right, Councilor Ryder?
Yeah, I agree that this should be and should have been an open. This is public money, and the public has a right to access to one of the most important aspects of their life here, which is how public money is spent. So, I would hope and expect that this is done in the open and transparently next time.
Councilor Broughton,
Just-
one
just-
final comment and then we'll move
Just
on.
a note that the financial statements were immediately released.
Yeah.
They were brought to council and then immediately released.
Sorry, no, they were not. Financial statements have not been released. We were told that we were going to release them, but they've never been released. Correct? I asked this before. In the closed meeting, we said we we're going to release the financial statements, but we haven't done it. Public has no access to it. That was the point.
Okay, so, Mr. Blackwell, you can check on that, perhaps.
I can confirm that they haven't, and BDO is probably positioned to tell the audit has been completed. And the T's crossed and I's dotted, that none of this information should be released in case it changes. And they can't predict where, how, and what way change may happen, so with an abundance of caution, all of this stuff is discussed and closed until the process is complete. That it can be reported out fulsome and accurately to the community at that time.
So to be clear, it's not complete or it is complete?
It's not, at this point, it's not complete.
Okay, I
This
will
is the
move on to,
2022 audit.
Correct.
Correct.
okay, we'll leave that with staff. Item number 14, new business, no new business. Okay, item number 15, we'll open up to questions. Anyone on the floor? No, okay, we'll move to the gallery. Marina, if you can see if there's anyone in the gallery that would like to ask a question.
Oh, yep, we have Casey Dyer.
Casey Dyer.
Okay,
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Wanted to ask about Carl's reports. Because he put them up on screen, so I presume they're open, but I don't see them as a part of the agenda, and I just wanted to know if they would be available online, and if so, when? Thank you.
Mr. Blackwell.
They've
Oh.
just uploaded to the website.
They have been uploaded apparently to the website.
That's excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Marina.
Okay, any other questions, Marina? Okay, motion to move back into closed.
Moved.
Second, all in favor,
I,
opposed, carried. Marina will move into closed. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Okay, welcome back to the March 19th council meeting. We've just come out of closed and we'll report out that council would like to call the community for nominations for the Citizen of the Year and Distinction and Citizen of the Year awards. Let me repeat that again. Council would like to request from the community that the community put forward citizens for the Citizen of Distinction and Citizen of the Year, and we'll be entertaining those. And we'd also like to report out that council is pleased to advise that we have reappointed for the 2024 year Jennifer Heatherton, Nicole Strahl, Hugo Van Hoog-Spratten, Kit McLean to the Curly Stewart Memorial Fund Award Committee, and Councillor Abbott to continue as chair. So thank you very much. Do we have a motion to
So
close
moved.
off the meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried.